we are going to dive into the AFC West. And this time around, we're going to be ranking them 1 through 4 based on positions. Those positions that we have today are going to be quarterback, wide receiver, running back, tight end, offensive line, defensive line, linebackers, defensive backs, and coach, and then overall.
The cherry on top, the overall. And this is just for in division. I know you said this, but I just want to make sure that people hear like a second time. That is in division. So I don't want to see nothing about, but this is me. Josh Jacobs isn't better than Saquon Barkley.
Yeah. This is only in division, folks. Only in division, which it's a pretty good division to start off with. All right. So going into the AFC West. Quarterback rankings 1 through 4.
What is the easiest ranking of all time? Quarterbacks in the AFC West. I wonder who could be number 1.
Just so a disclaimer, we're going to be naming 1 through 4 the teams in the division ranked by their position in totality. So the Chiefs, the teams,
the whole shebang,
starter and backup.
Squad.
Yeah, we're going to break down the entire portion of that team based on that position.
But I would say, at least for me when I do this, that although I take into account the whole unit, the starters do make a big impact for me with like Shorty say. Like if you were on like the Chargers, I know back in the day did a lot of rotation stuff. So like that kind of affects it differently. But like with the quarterbacks, like Raiders might have Derek Carr and Marcus Mariota, but that's not better than Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Sorry, spoilers.
Sorry, guys. Our number 1 pick for both of us, surprise, at quarterback is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is just the best in the league. I think he's better than Lamar. I don't think it's any real argument who's number 1 in this.
Best in the division, best in the league. The Chiefs, they just signed. I'm blanking on his name, but the Michigan quarterback who just came out.
Shea Patterson?
Yeah, they signed Shea Patterson as a backup. I don't know, let Matt Moore retire again. But, it's still Patrick Mahomes is dynamic. Best quarterback. 10 years, $450 million, 140 guaranteed. There's a reason he got signed that contract.
Yes, it's wildly apparent to everybody that in his 4th year in the league, this man deserves this goddamn contract.
Yeah, so we get to number 2. At number 2, we disagree.
We disagree. Yes, we do. Who do you have at number 2 for quarterbacks?
The Las Vegas Raiders. They'll always be Oakland in my heart. But the Las Vegas Raiders, I think Derek Carr is better than Tyrod Taylor. The soul patch, man. The brother. One was almost an MVP. Marcus Mariota is interesting. I know John Gruden wants to move away from Derek Carr, but I don't think that Derek Carr's been given a great chance. But look, a lot of people might be wondering why Drew Lock isn't here. Maybe Drew Lock showed a lot of flashes. I have a hard time, and you'll see this consistently throughout this. I'm not going to put somebody who's played 1 season or half a season over somebody who I've seen repeatedly. That's a big thing to me. So, like, if you're a big Drew Lock believer, or if you don't like where maybe the wide receiver rankings are for Denver, it comes to the fact, like, Jerry Jeudy might be amazing, but I haven't seen him play. I've only seen, 6-7 games out of Drew Lock. I'm not going to put him. I've seen seasons of Tyrod Taylor. I've seen seasons of Derek Carr. I think Derek Carr is better than Tyrod Taylor, and Drew Lock, we'll see what happens. But Raiders at 2. I think that Marcus Mariota suffered a lot of injuries, and there was a lot of coaching changes in Tennessee, which kind of led to him not doing as well. I think he's a great backup. That is a guy who could start if he's healthy for your team. So the Raiders, I love it. I love that pair. Even if it's just counting out Marcus Mariota. Derek Carr, I love him. I think that he's a good, solid quarterback. He's better than Tyrod Taylor. I know that for a fact.
Okay. I would say it was a toss-up for me. I put the Chargers at number 2 and Raiders at 3. I just feel like Tyrod Taylor and that offense, especially with Anthony Lynn, I think the connection that they will have will make it seem as though Tyrod Taylor is doing more than he is doing,
Right.
actually. I really feel like that offense is built to really pad the stats of a quarterback, and I feel like that's what will happen this year. I think the
Who
Austin
would you rather
Eckler,
have?
Keenan Allen, Mike Williams trio is just going to get Tyrod
But this
Taylor
isn't about who's the better
3,000
offense. Who's the
yards.
better quarterback? Who would you rather, Tyrod Taylor or Derek Carr? Simple as that. At the end of the day, you have the Chicago Bears. Which one are you signing?
I'm going to tank that. I'm going to tank that franchise.
It
I don't
doesn't
know.
matter. They're the perfect team because they're a team that should be going to Super Bowls, but they have Mitchell Trubisky. So simple. Would you sign Derek Carr or Tyrod Taylor? You're the Chicago Bears. You need which one? Which one are you going to sign? 10
Tyrod
times out of
Taylor.
10, I will send Derek. Oh, my God.
I think Derek Carr is the next Jay Cutler, and everybody gives him too much respect.
Sam Darnold is the next Jay Cutler.
Wow. I think Derek Carr embodies Jay Cutler in his early career, where when he came out, everybody really liked Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler was putting on a show in Denver. And
can't forget that.
And then all of a sudden he gets shipped to Chicago and he's expected to be this messiah.
Kyle Orton became their gross. I hate Kyle Orton. I mean, we have this inverse. I mean, with the way that I talked about Drew Lock, I think you could have guessed that I have Denver at the 4th spot here.
I do too.
I don't know what I'm getting with Drew Lock. You just
exactly.
You don't know.
And I agree with your opinion on not giving a half a season to really judge someone, because you look at that season where Brock Osweiler took over. Then you look
I say that because when we get to NFC West and people get mad at me where I have Kyler Murray in this order, or like why I don't have I think I actually do have Lamar higher, but like they're just things like I don't know what you're capable of. You know, if you've been in and it goes for coaches and stuff too. So like later when we talk about NFC East, it has 3 brand new coaches. Like I don't know where you want to sort them, but here Denver's at 4. Tyrod Taylor, I've seen him. I know what he is. At best, he's like the 16th quarterback. It's Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
So we have that inverse, but we have KC and Denver both at 1 and 4, and then we just flip that middle.
Yeah, I think it could flip either way. I just feel like Derek Carr will do Derek Carr things, and then Marcus Mariota will do Marcus Mariota things.
Taylor over Derek Carr. If you're the chick, my buttocks. All right, this one, wide receiver. I had a hard time with wide receiver. I'm gonna be honest. I had a hard time here.
But I totally agree with you. But we came out with the same exact predictions.
But it came down to this. Kansas City's one easy. They have Tyreek Hill, who is better than that's not
for all the listeners. We're talking about wide receivers now.
Yeah, Keenan Allen is a better wide receiver than Tyreek Hill, but Keenan Allen is older now. He's had some injuries, and Tyreek Hill is insanely fast. Tyreek's now with the Deion Sanders thing. I was looking at Twitter, and I think people were really just saying Deion because I think that we have a tendency to want to uphold the past. Yeah. Dude, Tyreek might destroy Deion Sanders in the current NFL. If they're playing in the 90s and he can pass interference like he did against Michael Irvin, so aggressively, clearly a pass interference. I'm not over it. I was like 3. But I mean, Tyreek Hill is fast as heck. Yeah. It's gonna be like this PG-13 swearing. This is awful. Well, Nico Hardman, if Sammy Watkins is actually playing, Sammy Watkins was a decent receiver for them last year. He hasn't been what we thought, but it's not our fault that Buffalo traded to 10 to pick him.
I would disagree. I think Sammy Watkins came in clutch last year. Anytime they needed him, they got him.
He is a good wide receiver.
Kansas City is top 5 wide receiving core in the league.
I don't know if I'd say top 5. I'd have to think through it. But look, Sammy Watkins is good enough that you think about his talent, not the fact that he thinks that he's a lizard person. So
yeah, it's true.
But Chiefs, I think, eked out number 1 here just because they're the Raiders, the Chiefs, and Denver all have kind of a question mark, and Raiders and Denver both have huge reliance on rookies right now.
Exactly, and that's exactly what I was going to say was Denver could move up to the 2nd spot if Jerry Jeudy produces, or same way for the Oakland. If Ruggs produces, they can have some good wide receivers, but Las Vegas has nobody besides
I disagree.
Ruggs. They have Hunter Renfrow from 2 years ago got drafted.
Hunter Renfrow looked great at the end of last season with Derek Carr, and Tyrell Williams was doing good until he got hurt. Tyrell Williams is a good wide receiver. He's not great. He's not amazing. He's good, though. And I think that this Raider, if Ruggs turns out to be good, this receiving core, in my opinion, is just as good as Kansas City. The only reason people are going to get mad is because Kansas City, Miko, Harbaugh, they're just faster. It's the fastest receiving core. But Kansas City is still one. They have a great set of wide receivers. Tyreek Hill is better than everybody right now. And, this is real NFL. I always want to think about fantasy. Tyrell Williams did this to me, or Tyreek Hill.
I do too. Yeah.
But this is real NFL, and, it's a great thing.
I put the Chargers at 2 only for the fact that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams have been a pretty good tandem over the past couple of years. And then I would also, because they catch so much out of the backfield, I would throw Austin Eckler in with that wide receiving group.
If you want to half and half him as an argument about the receiving core totality, yes, but just wide receivers. Because then if we talk about that, though, Kansas City still reigns supreme because you add in the tight end, Travis Kelce, who's the number 1 tight end in the NFL. But I agree with you that Mike Williams had a bad year last year for touchdowns. But Mike Williams is a big play guy. And he's not as good as Tyreek Hill, but he's the same kind of thing. It's a big play. He might have 2 receptions for 2 yards, and then suddenly he has a reception for 45 yards. Keenan Allen, if I got Keenan Allen in his prime, this is better than Kansas City. Keenan Allen is better than Tyreek Hill. I don't care if Tyreek Hill is faster and flashier. Keenan Allen, when healthy, was a monster. He's still good. And look, honestly, though, if I knew what I was getting out of these rookies, I might move this down to the bottom just because of how old it is.
I like them in Denver were very close for me. Just because Denver has to rely on the rookie Jerry Jeudy, I truly think their wide receiving core could be great. With Cortland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, and KJ Hamler, I think
Deshaun Hamilton.
Huh?
Deshaun Hamilton. I believe in you, Deshaun. He got drafted last year, kind of didn't do much, but I still believe in him a lot.
He's a number 2 behind Cortland Sutton on their draft chart, so he probably won't get as many snaps. But Deshaun Hamilton is a great talent, and I think if the rookies show up, or if Jerry Jeudy really shows up,
it doesn't even need to be KJ
all that attention on Cortland Sutton for having to get those, 3rd and 8s. Those are Cortland Sutton's, pride and joy.
If Jerry Jeudy
he can get over the middle of the field, but if he doesn't have to be the one that has to be relied on for that was just going to open up that offense. So Denver's wide receiving crew could be number 2 in this.
I think that if Jerry Jeudy hits, it's number 1. I can hear Denver fans now. Cortland Sutton was amazing on his own. You're right. He was very good. To be fair, though, I love Cortland Sutton. I was a big fan of Cortland Sutton out of college. I loved him, and I loved Deshaun Hamilton getting signed. He's a great person. The fantasy footballers have an interview with him that's really fun to watch. But if Jerry Jeudy hits, you are talking about you're talking about what Minnesota had for a couple of years with Adam Thielen, and you're talking about what LA has with Robert Woods and my boy from Yakima, Cooper Kupp.
Oh, Cooper Kupp.
You're talking about Seattle potentially had what Seattle had with Doug Baldwin and Tyler Lockett. What they potentially have with DK. What Seattle? Well, I just go back all this time where Seattle just had these 2 great, what's Golden Tate, Doug Baldwin, or Percy Harvin, Golden Tate. And you potentially have
and then Curse back there to back him up, like Deshaun Hamilton.
Yeah, could. I love Deshaun Hamilton, but KJ Hamler's probably going to get more over than he is. Yeah. I really like the potential of it. But it's a rookie. So Jerry Jeudy could bust the same way that CeeDee Lamb could bust, the same way that Henry Ruggs could bust, the same way that all 3 of them could be amazing talents. And I'm going to get into my thing with Henry Ruggs because I am super scared by it. But I like Denver's running core. I think that you nailed it on the head about that. If he hits, you're looking at a great receiving core, and you're looking at monster numbers from Cortland Sutton and him.
Yeah.
I can see it. If it hits, it's one of those games where the start of the game, everybody's on Cortland Sutton, and all of a sudden Jerry Jeudy gets a really big catch, and so then you see all those corners move to the right side of the field, and all of a sudden Cortland Sutton gets a big catch, and you're just watching them try to figure out who to cover, and the answer is you can't. And then they'll play like the Panthers and get shut down, or play like they'll play some random team that sucks that every year does something, or it'll be Atlanta, and there'll be like one game from the playoffs, and Atlanta will be like 3-12 or something, and Atlanta will just be like, you're not getting a win today. But so then moving to number 4.
Yep.
Vegas Raiders. I like parts of this. I'm a big Tyrell Williams believer. I think that he's a great 2. I like Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr's connection. Hunter Renfrow might not be like as good as these guys, but they have a great connection. They have a great
Hunter
tight
Renfrow
end.
was touted as the next Amendola coming into this league.
No,
and
well, it's not
to be
hard
honest,
to be slot
he hasn't
receiver.
done anything.
He had a good finish last year with Derek Carr. They had a good connection you saw for him. But this receiving core will not be good if Henry Ruggs is not good. Henry Ruggs got drafted at 12. I cannot express how upset I was. Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, I'd rather have both. These speed receivers are so hit or miss. 9 out of 10 times, you get John Ross, not Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
You get, I can't think of another one, not Deshaun Jackson. There are so many that I don't even remember because they want Deshaun Jackson. They want Tyreek Hill. You don't get these guys often.
You go for that, Larry Fitzgerald, and you end up with a Darius Hayward Bay.
Yeah, you get Devin Funchess.
Hey.
No, I'm just super worried about it, and I think that the Raiders and the Denver Broncos both want to replicate the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's why I think the Chargers, you see them saying, no, we're not playing this catch-up game for the same reason that Andy Reid wasn't good for years in that end part of the season. It's because he was trying to be Bill Belichick. He was trying to make these. He was trying to play checkers on chessboard, and once he figured out that he needed to play chess, they have been dominant.
Yeah.
I mean, they were one play from the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They went. They slaughtered teams because Andy Reid realized he needed to play more Andy Reid ball, which is what he did so well in Philly for so long. Thank God that ended. God, that was a nightmare every year
for you.
But yeah, for me, I don't give a shit about every other division. But yeah, so Kansas City at 1, LA, Denver, Raiders, and I mean it really just depends whether for Denver and for Vegas, whether or not that rookie hits.
Yeah. I totally agree.
And
moving on to running backs, though.
Did the Raiders draft another wide receiver? They did. They drafted Bryan Edwards. Who?
Yeah.
Okay. Fun fact. This is a fantasy thing. On Sleeper, Bryan Edwards, I'm pretty sure, is still listed as a wide receiver / running back. So here's a fantasy hot tip of the day. Get all of those players in the second half of your draft. Any player that has two things, get that because that's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's Bryan Edwards. It's one of the Raiders players has that double marking on a Sleeper app for fantasy. So there's my fantasy advice of the day. I know this isn't totally fantasy. We'll get into some fantasy later with stuff, but that's just I saw that. I had to remember that. Exciting. So you are correct. All right, we're moving to running backs.
Yep.
This is the one where it gets into more, okay, who all is there, not just who's the best one. Because obviously Josh Jacobs right now is the best running back in this division. Well, I guess that's not fair.
Absolutely.
I'd rather have Josh Jacobs than Melvin Gordon.
Top.
But it's not just Josh Jacobs. There's a whole thing. I'd rather have Josh Jacobs than Melvin Gordon. I think I've seen the best that Melvin Gordon can offer. I think I've seen glimpses of the best that Josh Jacobs can offer, and I think he'll get there.
Melvin Gordon had a pseudo offensive player of the year.
He also had a whole year without a touchdown.
I think you rely too heavily on that one stat. I think he was hurt most of that year.
No, he was not. He was a rookie. He sucked. He averaged what's his yard? I have seen a dime a dozen Melvin Gordons in the league.
But you cannot tell me that we're taking this as a whole. So you can't tell me that one Josh Jacobs beats Melvin.
No, it doesn't. No. I'm not saying
and Phillip Lindsay.
No. I'm not saying that Vegas is the better running back set. I was saying that this is where that whole group comes into. Because I have Denver at number 1. I'm saying though, if it was just alone, Raiders would be 1 here because I think Josh Jacobs is the best running back in this division. But you have Denver, who has Phillip Lindsay. I like Royce Freeman. I think that fantasy has warped our views of what talent is. If you're not just this dominant player on the field, I think a lot of people get bored with you.
Yeah.
Especially in our age group where fantasy is so popular. Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay, Royce Freeman is a great 3-headed monster.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I've also heard though that Denver has been shopping Phillip Lindsay. So even if you take that out and you have Royce Freeman and Melvin Gordon, I still like this backfield more than everybody else's. Now, that being said, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire hits, hold on to your horses because that's going to rip through people. But Denver, right now, Denver is clear-cut. They have 2 good running backs, and they have Royce Freeman, who's been a decent pass catcher, and he's a bowling ball.
I agree. So we're the same on number 1 ranking, but then we differ at number 2. You have Las Vegas at number 2 with 1 running back, Josh Jacobs.
Whoa, that's not true. They have I'm blanking on his name. No,
Lynn Bowden
the
Jr.?
Raiders. The Raiders have another. I can't think of his name. That's a pass catcher.
Richard?
Yeah, Jalen Richard.
Jalen
Richard.
Yeah.
Look, I love the idea of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He hasn't played a down. I'm not gonna rank a rookie. Like I never do it. Never in my life. I'm not gonna
give Josh Jacobs the respect that everybody else does because Josh Jacobs is their only weapon on offense.
Nah, Tyrell Williams and Darren Waller are both good. Hunter Renfro's all right as a slot.
When we get to tight ends, then I'll tell you about Darren Waller. But
I will fight for the Raiders offense here. I will fight for them. I might shit on the Raiders a bit or be kind of mean, but I will defend. Josh Jacobs is a great running back. Josh Jacobs is the best running back from this class. I don't want to hear shit about Miles Sanders. Josh Jacobs is a great running back. Like
I think he is too. I just don't think he's the ball. I don't think that one running back is better than Helaire and Damian Williams.
We haven't seen Helaire play. Helaire could be terrible. So we have to go with terrible,
but I doubt that he will because he runs the same offense that Kansas City runs.
Nah, he ran LSU. We've seen that. And look, I guess this is kind of unfair of me to say because of where I have KC with the Chargers, but I think Josh Jacobs is super good, and I think that he fits what they want. They want a bruising running back, and I look at what I know, and I know that Damian Williams is not good. I know that Damian Williams has flashes in the same way that Raheem Mostert has flashes, in the same way that there have been a million running backs. Like, I've seen this a dime a dozen times, and Josh Jacobs is better than that. Josh Jacobs reminds me of a running back like 10 years ago, just like a nice bruising guy. And like
Josh Jacobs reminds me of Amon Green from the Packers.
Yeah, Amon and the Texans too. Well, he was on the Texans for a while too, wasn't he?
For I think 1 year, but
I thought Amon Green came from the Texans to the Packers.
I don't think so. I think he was drafted by the Packers.
No, I don't know. I gotta look it back. I'm not the world's biggest cheesehead, but look, we can disagree here. I'll stand by that. Josh Jacobs is a better talent. All that being said, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire is good, if he is Bryan Adams or like if he hits that,
we'll have to see. But I truly think that Kansas City is just going to steamroll, and it will be because their running backs are also good. I think Kansas City, like Helaire and then Damian Williams, even if Helaire is half as good as everybody says he is, he's better than what LaShawn McCoy did.
No!
Help them.
No! You know,
McCoy
about?
On
the Chiefs, you're talking about McCoy all time.
No, McCoy on the Chiefs. Not McCoy all time.
If he's half as good as we think, he's 10 times better than what McCoy was this year because he's a washed-up old man. For the NFL standards.
McCoy put in work this season, though. I had him on fantasy, so I know that he would come in at clutch times and put in work. And if Helaire is half as good as that, he's better pass catcher out of the backfield.
Everyone's a better pass catcher than what they had last season.
Their pass catching out of the backfield is so important to their offense, and now they have 2 running backs that can do it successfully. So I think
I'll give you like 1.5. I'm not a Damian Williams fan. All right, well, we have this inverse because you have the Raiders. Excuse me, you have the Raiders at 3, and I have the Chiefs at 3.
Yeah.
If Clyde Edwards-Helaire hits, this running back group could move to 1. I'll be honest. If Clyde is as good as we think, like I like Melvin Gordon. I don't think he's anything special. He reminds me of DeMarco Murray.
Yikes.
This back he's like good and he does stuff, but like when the team is good, he's good. When the team is bad, he can be bad. But at 4, we both agree on this. The Chargers. I love Austin Eckler. I love him. I am so happy that he got stuff. He is not a workhorse running back.
Absolutely not.
He was amazing.
They have Justin Jackson behind him, who's somewhat of a workhorse.
We've seen that guy play. It's not good. They just drafted Kelly, who potentially, if Kelly's good, then Eckler is a lot better, and this is a better running back core. But look, Austin Eckler's fun. Austin Eckler is a worse CMC because he can't run the ball up the middle as well. Like he is, I would argue, like the third or fourth best pass catching running back in the NFL. He is amazing.
Yeah.
Behind like CMC, Saquon, and Kamara, he's amazing. He's beautiful. I watch his highlights all day. He's an underdog story. I love him. He just got paid. Like I want nothing but love. If I had a Chargers jersey, I'd have an Eckler jersey. I love this guy. He's not it. Yeah. He ain't gonna carry this team. I think we've all lost sight because he had this fantasy season, and I feel like we gotta quote fantasy a lot because I think people look at success in the modern era as through fantasy as well, like this and that, and fantasies become so popular that Austin Eckler, also people are like, he's so amazing. He did great in fantasy, so he must be this amazing. He caught 1,000,000 balls. Like him, CMC, I think is the only running that caught more passes than him. So I love him.
That fantasy has led us into a time where now we look at the numbers way more.
Analytics is more important, but there's also like when you just watch the games. I just watch Eckler, dude. He is not gonna get through, Chris Jones. He's not gonna get through. I'm trying to think of Bradley Chubb. He's not gonna get through Calais Campbell. He's not gonna get through these good defenders. He'll beat bad ones, but he's gonna be best when you have a linebacker following him and he can just tear out because the linebacker's not gonna be fast enough.
Yeah.
But this running back group is not great.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's just him. It's just the Ecklers and the Eckler-Knights.
It matters for this running back if Kelly hits. I don't really believe in what's his face, the other guy they have. I think we've seen enough of him to know what he is, which is
Justin Jackson.
Yeah, he's a dime a dozen running back. Which, hey, you know what? Being a dime a dozen running back in the NFL does not mean you're bad. Because you were better than like 90% of collegiate athletes.
Yeah.
So I don't want people to. I think that gets construed too, but that's a whole like philosophical thing about like what good and bad means in the NFL. Of course, they're better than me. I'm a tubby dude, dad bod out here.
Well, one thing I have to say before we move on from running backs is that the Raiders drafted someone who is very interesting to me, Lynn Bowden Jr. And
anybody with junior has my attention.
Lynn Bowden Jr. Played at Kentucky, and Lynn Bowden Jr. was one of the SEC's finest running backs. And they called him the most versatile player in the SEC. And we all know the teams that are in the SEC. So I think his versatility is something that can really maybe bolster that offense to something that could be great. I think he is someone who could turn this team around just a little bit in the way that they need.
I think definitely to kind of cap off this Raiders is they need a better pass catcher. As much as I like Josh Jacobs, his pass catching is not what you want him for. And so I think that what they're looking for is almost like what the Chargers had with Melvin Gordon, Austin Eckler, which is you have this nice, strong guy up front, and then you have a guy that can roll out to the side and you can give screens to. I've definitely been interested in Lynn Bowden, although this group of rookie running backs is one of my favorites. So he's been moved to the side just with people like Jonathan Taylor, DeAndre Swift, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I'm with you on that one. I'm very curious to see how that works out for them.
Yeah.
So moving to tight end. What an easy number one again.
I would say it's an easy ranking all the way through. I think we only differ in the middle again, but it's barely.
Is that Jason Kelce? Nope, it's Travis Kelce.
Travis Kelce obviously tops the list for tight ends.
Best tight end in the NFL.
Best tight end in the NFL, no questions about it. I think that's an easy one. We don't have to really argue why he's number one. Moving to number two. He's
not as electric as Kittle. Like I'll say this because I know there are people who think Kittle. He's not as electric as Kittle. Kittle, I think, makes bigger plays. But on the play-to-play, I think Kelce is much better with the ball.
And Kelce's a better blocker.
I love Kittle. Like, if this was a fantasy argument, Kittle's number one to me because he's more electric and he makes more plays. But I think
he gets more points. But I think as a teammate, I don't want Kelce because Kelce is a better blocker. And I feel like I don't know. I know that George Kittle is a really good guy, but Kelce just seems like he's there to win and win at whatever cost. And sometimes I don't get that from Kittle.
I don't know where you get that, but that's a whole different thing. I'll say this before we move on because it's really easy to say that he's number one here. something that I think Kelsey doesn't give it as much credit for sometimes is he gets kind of swept on, and not totally, like he's given a lot of credit in this offense, but I think that sometimes he doesn't get given enough credit for how much he actually is vital to this offense. Like he reminds me like 2 years ago how important Zach Ertz was to that Eagles offense. Travis Kelsey, without Kelsey, this offense does not run the way it runs. Like the only reason you get the speed of Tyreek Hill sprinting down the side of Mecole Hardman is because they have to pull DBs and linebackers to come worry about the fact that Travis Kelsey 5 yards ahead, and Travis Kelsey could run 40 yards down the field and catch a dime. Like he's so good. He is like, he's not to the same degree of dominance, but he's like Gronk, that he can do anything and everything, and he's healthier. He can also throw flags at the ref, which is one of my favorite reasons he's been ejected from a game. So he threw his towel at a ref for a bad call. I love it.
Yeah. I think he's not given as much. I think you're on the right point that he's not given as much, credit because he is the distractor, or he is the one that benefits from the distractors. I think he plays two different roles.
Mahomes and Tyreek Hill are like so electric, and Kelsey isn't electric. He's just great.
Well, I think that there's that electricity that you can get with the Kansas City offense, or you can get that 6-yard pass that turns into a 12-yard run because Kelsey can just blast through people or he can evade them. But
just tight ends just don't give you the big highlight reel plays usually.
But for sure, he was vital in them getting a lot of 3rd and longs that they needed to get because he was the only one open.
I can go back to Alex Smith. His vitality to this team is insane. But we move to number 2. Wow, I'm shocked by your ranking, seeing as how this homeboy can't play. He's never on the field.
Where?
Hunter Henry. You have LA number 2. Hunter Henry is never on the field. Give me Darren Waller of the Raiders every day of the week. 10 out of 10. 10 out of 10 days. Hunter Henry's good. He looks like a good tight end. Darren Waller looked amazing last year. Him and Carr had a great connection, and there was a lot of the year where he was the only real pass catcher they had.
Yes, he was. I picked him up in I think week 6. I picked him up and I dragged him all the way to the end of the season, and he was getting me points consistently. I will give you that, and maybe you're right. Maybe I will, because the more I think about it, I do like Darren Waller's upside a lot more than
Hunter. On episode changes. They happen, kids. Never be afraid to change your opinion when presented with new things. That's a big problem in modern society.
I'm going to change it right now, just because as I'm thinking about it, I view Darren Waller as much more valuable to his team than Hunter Henry is to his.
Look, Hunter Henry healthy has a lot of potential.
Yeah.
I don't care how potential if you're not on the field.
Well, we can always admit that he's better than Denver's Noah Fant, though.
Noah Fant, okay, we'll get into this, but real quick, I want to leave this back. Sam Bradford is an amazing quarterback. The only problem he could never stay on the field. So
Are you saying that because Hunter Henry looks like Sam Bradford?
I'm saying it because it's another player with a lot of potential talent that's never on the field. Sammy Watkins, great receiver potentially, never on the field. But we'll get to Denver here. I love Noah Fant. My problem
I do not. I think he drops so many balls that it's ridiculous.
So there was some problems. He got thrown a lot of deep balls. I was watching a lot of Noah Fant because I had a lot of interest in him and T.J. Hawkinson coming out of Iowa. Noah Fant feels like that Jimmy Graham vein of tight end. That's not as much tight end as they are a big wide receiver.
Yeah, but as a big wide receiver, you need hands, and this man just doesn't have it. I watched a lot of games last year. I watched a lot of Broncos games.
Big plays too, though. Like I give him on, he is a rookie, so I have him here at 4 because I like his potential, but he's a rookie and he needs to work on some stuff this offseason. He's 4th on the depth chart to catch a ball on that team, though.
I watched too many Broncos games last year because I had both Philip Lindsay and Joe Flacco. That I watched so many Broncos games that they could have won if Noah Fant didn't have a ball hit him directly in the chest and then end up on the ground.
He's trying to catch with his chest, not his hands. No, I agree with you that there's a lot of.
I am not fully sold on Noah Fant at all, and obviously you went on because you ranked him last, but I just don't see, unless he has a year where he can just consistently get those first downs that he was dropping last year, I don't think my trust will be regained with him.
I think for me, he's a rookie. He's developing. I want to. I after 3 years is my mark for any NFL rookie. 3 starting years. So for quarterbacks that like Patrick Mahomes didn't start. Now there are outliers. Patrick Mahomes is one of them. Like Lamar Jackson's a great example of this. I love Lamar. I have a lot of belief in Lamar. I had worries coming out of college about him. I want to see what he does 2 years from now. I want to see where he's at. You know, Noah Fant is one of those players that I think in 3 years they'll either be somebody that's not on the Denver Broncos anymore, or they'll be a pinnacle part of this offense. And I think tight end is difficult because it's a position that seems to be kind of phasing out almost the NFL a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
You need these big guys when you can move to speed, and that's in basketball what the Warriors did. You run.
But I think the Kansas City Chiefs are showing that you can have all of it. You can have your cake and eat it too.
Well, if every team could have a Travis Kelce, every team would love that tight end. I mean, for every Antonio Gates, there's a million Abrons.
And this is not a hit on Travis Kelce here, but I truly believe that if you put a good to great, or I would say mediocre to good tight end on that Kansas City team, you could turn them into an all-star. I truly believe that.
That's on more the strength of Patrick Mahomes. But like, look at Seattle. Here's a great example. Look at Seattle. They've had a ton of tight ends since 2000. But they've
all been solid.
Hold on. They've been okay, but Russell Wilson is a great quarterback. Actually, Here we go. Here's a great point. Eric Ebron. Terrible with the Lions. Stafford's a good quarterback. To be fair, I've only seen Stafford ever be great with one tight end, but he goes to the Colts, and he plays the season with Andrew Luck. And what does he do? He's amazing because Andrew Luck is an amazing quarterback. And then the next year he plays with Jacoby Brissett. I like Jacoby Brissett, but Jacoby Brissett's not Andrew Luck, and he does way worse. So you could give Noah Fant to the Chiefs, and Noah Fant's going to tear people apart, but he's not. He's on Denver. I like him, although I think that there are things he needs to do better. We agree on that completely.
Yeah.
So we move to the least sexy position of all time in football, the offensive line. And this one is rough for me because I think you can identify what a bad offensive line is, and you can identify what a great offensive line. Bad, you look at like Jacksonville, or you look at Seattle, Houston. You look at great, you look at the Colts, Pittsburgh, Dallas, Philly. But this in the middle, what does it mean to be a good O-line? And I think that all 4 of these teams, 3 of these 4 teams have good O-lines. They're not great. One of them has a bad one. I'll tell you right now, I'll start in the reverse. The Chargers have a bad offensive line. I'm going to start at the end here.
You're ranked at number 4?
Yeah, I started at 4 with this one. The Chargers have had a bad offensive line for most of my life that I can remember. Now, I'll give you that I'm a little fuzzy on when they went to the AFC Championship back-to-back. A little fuzzy. I was a child a bit. I'm only 23, soon to be 24. I'm not 45. I don't remember the 80s with whatever his face is. But I couldn't name you a single offensive line other than what they have. Oh, no, they traded Okung.
Yeah.
So
which made their line even better.
When he's good, when he's on, he's a good offensive lineman.
Russell Okung got so much hype out of Oklahoma State, and they did absolutely garbage.
No, he was good. He was not great though. But I mean, 3/4 of the NFL offensive linemen are good, not great, and they're not bad. They're good. It is good.
I think this is one of the hardest ones. Like one of the hardest categories to really.
Because it's what is it? A pass one? Is it? I mean, look here. I'll tell you. I think this one's gonna be easiest if we just read them now. We actually have them in the exact same order, which is Vegas, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers.
Yes.
And it might surprise people that the Raiders are there, but they made some big free agent signings to kind of get that bumped up. The Chiefs' offensive line is very good. Like we saw them hold plays against the Niners, who have arguably the best pass rush in the NFL.
Yeah.
Denver's offensive line is good. It has some holes that it needs filled. I mean, all four of these teams feel like they have offensive lines that have players that are all right, players that aren't all right. Some games they're good, some games they're bad.
I totally agree. Yeah.
Nothing fun. Not like I can't sit here and tell you these are amazing lines, and I can't sit here and tell you that they're terrible lines. The worst one here is the Chargers, and it's been a problem for years.
I would say that Kansas City and the Raiders are kind of close. I would maybe put Kansas City on top, but I think the Raiders making all the moves that they did just show that they are trying to protect Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, they want to run the ball, and it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you have a problem with that, let us know. You know, if you're an offensive line guy, I always want to be an offensive line guy. I didn't dig as deep for this offensive line ranking as I did for some of this other stuff. PFF is always a fun source. I try and find at least like 3 to 5 sources just because I don't want to just copy and paste PFF. I've watched a lot of AFC West in my life for some reason. I couldn't tell you why. I just have watched a lot of it. I think it's because we live on the West Coast. Both of us live in Washington. I'm gonna give your location away, Carl.
Uh-oh.
And so I think we just get these games on like our random midday Sunday games. I've seen a lot of Chargers games at 1 for whatever reason.
CBS.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'd say about it. You know, and always we want to hear from everybody listening, all 7 people that'll probably listen to this. Thanks, Mom. But yeah, so all right, we'll flip over now to the big D.
The defensive lines.
Everyone wants that Baltimore Ravens D.
We have some differences and we have some similarities in this one. Do you want to do the same where we rank them 4th to 1st on this one?
I think that we can start whichever way because we really have similar. Again, it's just our middle that flipped.
Yeah, I just absolutely think that the Raiders have an atrocious defensive line that has been ransacked.
The word atrocious feels wrong to say. It's not great. I'll give you that. It is not great.
They can't stop the run to save their life.
No, and we saw that cost Baltimore a AFC Championship appearance when they couldn't stop Derrick Henry. Which, by the way, if you really go look at that game, that defense just couldn't stop the run, which is why they went and got Calais Campbell. The Raiders have done a lot of rookie signing, and this is scooting forward a little bit with the linebackers. They bring in Corey Littleton, who's a very good linebacker, and I think that will help their D-line a lot because the linebacking core is your spine of your defense. And so when you get that improved, it helps your D-line. So I have them at last here like you do. But I think that there's a lot of potential to grow there. I still don't think it's going to be a dominant one. It's not going to be, Tampa Bay or Philly, but it won't be as bad as it was.
Yeah. So I have Kansas City at 3rd only for the fact that their one weakness that you could find in that defense was the running game. And they were really close to being last on this list, if I'm being honest.
You're talking about Kansas City. I'm sorry, my brain read a different team.
Yeah, Kansas City having the 7th ranked overall defense, but it could have been 2 or 3 if they had a good defensive line. They gave up almost the most rushing yards per attempt, 7th most rush yards per game.
I will give you that the interior of this defensive line is not its strength, but Dee Ford and Chris Jones are both immensely more talented than what Denver has to offer, which is why I have them flipped.
I just think that Denver's defense is more solid.
The loss of Derek Wolfe is a huge hit to Denver.
Yeah.
I know he's getting a little bit older, but he was still a tremendously impactful. And that's the only reason I have it flipped, actually, is because Derek Wolfe left. And if Chris Jones leaves, then you really are looking at Dee Ford to Bradley Chubb. And I'll take Bradley Chubb. I think that they're both immensely talented. But that's really really, neither one of these defensive lines to me are amazing. But I think that Kansas City has a slight edge, but I will give you that their interior was not great. I don't think the strength of either one of these defenses is their D line, although Denver with Von Miller has a better pass rush total.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, I'm smelling toast. than Kansas City, but I think that just that individual defensive line unit, Kansas City ekes out above them with D Ford and Chris Jones.
I could see that, especially with the loss of Derek Wolfe. I thought about it, and then I thought, where did Derek Wolfe go? Derek Wolfe went to the Ravens. The Ravens saw enough talent in that man.
Did he really sign with the Ravens?
He's a Baltimore Raven.
I missed. Oh God! All right, Baltimore's even more a lock for the Super Bowl than I thought.
He has maybe put into the last piece of that defensive line that they needed, and yeah, I still think that Denver has a great defensive line. They always have. It's very hard to run against Denver, but the Chargers, their defensive line is with Bosa and
Ingram. Oh my God!
Ingram.
If you are a fan of this division, I don't care if you don't like the Chargers or if you're a fan of the NFL and you don't know anything about the Chargers. The Chargers have a dirty defense, and it starts with that pass rush with Ingram and Bosa. Now, granted, we saw Nick Bosa be a little bit better, but I think people kind of almost forgot a little bit how good Joey Bosa really is.
Well, it's because Joey Bosa isn't on one of the highlight teams. I think Nick Bosa, if he was on a Jacksonville or an Indianapolis, he wouldn't get as much hype as he does in San Francisco. But
it's
the
fact TJ Watt syndrome.
Exactly. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in this entire league, but because he plays in Pittsburgh with a whole bunch of other good people in Pittsburgh, he gets shut out of all the conversations.
We expect consistency from some of these teams, but I mean, I don't know if you could actually genuinely argue with anybody that the Chargers D line here is not the best one.
Exactly.
Like you're being a Raider, a Bronco, or a Chiefs fan, and you're not wanting to admit it in the same way that we all. I don't ever want to admit that Philly has a better defensive line. I don't want to admit that Philly has a better quarterback. They do.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dak.
Sound like you said sorry, Dad.
Nah, my dad does not give a flying hoot about football. Unless it's Roger Staubach, he could care less. But so moving on to linebackers, we almost agree completely here.
I think we changed.
We flipped the bottom two.
Bottom two, yeah.
So starting with one, this is easy. The chicken farmer, the master of disaster, Von Miller, my man, the best Madden song of all time. Just start me now. Go look it up.
Yes.
He's just, even as he's gotten a little older, he is a beast on the field. And you know what now he is? He's a veteran who can help teach these guys. He is a monster. Like, I don't know another way. He is one of the best defenders I've ever seen. Like, he's amazing. He, at one point, I think, was arguably the best linebacker in the NFL. There was stiff competition, so he might not have been number one, but he's phenomenally talented, and he, even after losing a step, he's still better than, I think, anyone in this division.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that maybe... I want to say maybe, like Melvin Ingram is up there with him, like as a defensive player overall. But as a linebacker, I just don't think you could get better in this division than Von Miller. I think that he's just dominant. Everybody knows where he is constantly on the field, and that has to be rewarded with a number one. It has to be.
Yeah. I actually, looking over here, just moved my rankings around, so we are a little more disagreed than we were.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I see that you have the Raiders linebackers at number 2. Why is that?
Corey Littleton. Very, very easy.
Huge Littleton.
Loss to the Rams. Huge gain for the Raiders. He can play all the field. I actually had the Chargers here, and I realized that it had been a minute since I'd updated some of this. Corey Littleton is better than any linebacker the Chargers have. The Chargers unit is all right. Their defense,
but who else is around Corey Littleton?
Who all is there to the Chargers? I will say that as much as I don't like Vontaze Burfict, he is a talented linebacker. If you take off the fact that he cheap shots and plays like it's 1995, that is a huge loss. But Corey Littleton, I think, is still able here to elevate this linebacker core and help every part of this defense.
I just can't get over the fact that no one
I'll
else
take.
on that team besides Corey Littleton has made any
I will
real
take Corey
moves.
Littleton over the whole of the Chargers linebacking core. Corey Littleton is phenomenally talented. He's amazing.
I don't know. I have to put LA second.
I might be breaking away from my own idea here a little bit. LA might be better as a unit. I might have to. You know what? No, you're right. You're right. As a unit, I'm breaking away from my own rule. I'm getting caught up with the star factor of Littleton. You are correct. You are correct that the Chargers unit as a whole is better than what Littleton provides for the whole of the linebacking core for Raiders.
You see that, kids? That is two people coming together with disagreeing opinions.
No, you know what? Yo, ass Corey Littleton. That being said, though, super excited for Corey Littleton. Although you still, so I mean, we put Chargers at 2. Kind of, you have the Chiefs ahead of the Raiders.
I don't know. I think that this group is just, I think a pretty darn good group. Him and Anthony Hitchens and I think Damian Wilson. Yeah, Damian Wilson. They were always solid. You know, I will say that is one of the spots on the Kansas City defense that is very easily plucked at, and that's why I have them at 3. I don't have them at 4 because I just think that the Raiders only having Littleton is not going to do anything. He's not going to do anything at all. I don't think their defense has been substantial in the least in the past 2-3 years, and I don't think adding Corey Littleton is going to do anything to that. But I think Kansas City's solid core of mediocre to good linebackers is something that can be exploited, but is not a number 4 ranking.
So I mean, I have no idea how to say his name. Nick on the Raiders linebacking unit.
I mean, Kwiatkowski or
they're all right. I'll give you that. They're all right. But I think that this is where it does come into how good Littleton is that I think Littleton being so good elevates these average to okay players to the point that as a unit, this is going to be a stronger unit than what Kansas City has. And I think that linebacking core is honest, like that whole set is honestly Kansas City's biggest problem as a team.
Yeah.
It's their weakest part of their
thing that they have a problem with as a team. You show me anything else on this list that we're talking about that they're not 1 or 2 besides running back, because that's questionable.
I think that you can make an argument about DBs, them not like they have a better core because the Raiders and Broncos are more suspect here. But I mean, I think you could argue that the Chiefs DBs in a league-wide set are more arguable. This team has weak points. I think at wide receiver depth, they have some problems. They kind of duplicated Tyreek Hill with a less good version with Mecole Hardman. They don't really have like
Mecole Hardman is going to be an all-star. I don't care what you say.
All right, let's calm down on that. But
Mecole Hardman will be in the Pro Bowl this coming year.
So this is a good segue. So when we get to DBs, the Chargers are at number 1. Their safeties plus Chris Harris. It's a great addition.
Solid core group in LA.
Look, I have the Chiefs here at second because of Tyrann Mathieu. That being said, if Chris Harris had not departed from Denver, Denver would be number 1 here because they add AJ Boye, who's a very talented corner. They have a decent pair of safeties, but I think that they're really lacking. I don't think that their safeties are going to be amazing, and I think that their corners are going to struggle. Although AJ Boye is a great addition. Derwin James
on the Chargers.
Classic double check where you put things, and the Raiders are above them. So I don't know what I was doing there.
Derwin James is one of my favorite safeties to watch.
Boner ape tit.
He is great. He will always he just finds the ball constantly. He's like a I would say he's probably up there with a Weddle kind of thing, where
he is one of the best safeties in the current NFL.
Yes, totally agree. And I think having him back there with Chris Harris at one of the sides and then Casey Hayward Jr. at the other, it's not a bad side.
Not bad. That's good. That is good.
Yeah, I think that's a solid. It's a solid group, and I think that they well deserve number 1. And I think Kansas City, ekes by with number 2 with Rashad Breeland and Tyrann Mathieu. I think Charvarius Ward at the other corner is probably maybe not going to have that job this year, just because he wasn't the go-to cornerback. It was Rashad Breeland, and yeah, I think that's a healthy pick at 2 behind the Chargers, and then we really get into like the Broncos and the Raiders both kind of just exist with their DBs.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I think that Denver has the potential here with AJ Boye to have a decent little secondary. They have some decent safeties back there. I don't think it's going to be anything like amazing lights out, but it'll be good enough to disrupt play. Although I don't think they're going to stop, the elites of the world, but they can probably shut down your good receivers. So teams like Buffalo. This is where teams like Buffalo and like the Raiders, I feel like, will struggle a little bit more here, because I don't really feel like they're gonna. Stephon Diggs isn't gonna. Well, Stephon Diggs might tear this off, but I think that the Raiders are bad. I think that the Raiders are bad at their secondary. I don't quite understand what they've done.
And the saddest thing is that they have some highlight players, and those players are just terrible. They have Prince Amukamara at one corner.
Yes, that's right. They did add that. That is why I had him. That is okay. I'm remembering now some of my thought process earlier. So I did, because of that addition, did move the Raiders above the Broncos. But looking back here with AJ, I think AJ Boye is at a better part in his career than Prince Amukamara is.
Exactly. And then Demarius Randall at a free safety position instead of a corner position, which he played his time in Green Bay and then Cleveland. He also played corner. They moved him to free safety. I don't know about that.
I just think that the Raiders have their defense as a whole is the word I would use is okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to bad. They've added some stuff. Maybe it'll work out better. But really, it's not getting past number 20. If you ask between all 32 teams, it ain't getting past 20. None of these spots are, and DBs I'd say is their weakest point.
Yeah, I would say their linebackers are pretty good. Their defensive line is not very good to me.
It's all right. I wouldn't say that any of these are pretty good. I'd say their linebacking core, it looks better, and the rest of it's just okay.
Yeah.
Just okay. Welcome to the Raiders. They're okay.
Alrighty. And then
now we move to the exciting coaching staff.
Yeah, coaching staffs. What do you have as your number 1? This is not that
hard at number 1. It's John Gruden it's Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not hard. Andy Reid's probably the second best coach. If you want to make an argument about Sean Payton, I think that's a valid argument.
I disagree. I think Andy Reid is, if not 1, he's 2.
He's not 1. He is 2, maybe 3.
Someone told me that Don Shula is better than Andy Reid, and I said, well, what NFL did Andy Reid coach in, and what NFL did Don Shula coach in?
Well, that's the problem is we talk about people like Joe Montana. Well, the NFL that Joe Montana plays in and the NFL that Patrick Mahomes plays in, separated by 30 years, are violently different.
Exactly.
So, I mean, you can only compare to them what's around. Bill Belichick has always had his number. Andy Reid's biggest problem has always come. And honestly, this is where my big problem is that I've watched Andy Reid lose games for his team. He doesn't manage clocks well. He has serious things to criticize him about. And having Mahomes has saved his ass a lot with that natural talent. Andy Reid is I say that as, I mean, I talk a little smack here, but Andy Reid is a phenomenal head coach. He's the second best in the NFL. And he's the best in this division by a long shot.
Yes. The next closest one for both of us was Anthony Lynn.
Yeah, and I like Anthony Lynn a lot, but Anthony Lynn, if you want to argue about Gruden being here in their total repertoire, I could understand that. But I'm thinking about since John Gruden has come back, I haven't loved a lot. Although I think that his way of playing is a little bit refreshing because he's kind of hybridized the way that he coached in the early 2000s and how the NFL is now, and it's created something a little different than the mainstream coaching, which I like. But Anthony Lynn, I think, is doing better. He has a better team. He has a better record, and
I'll tell you why
I like Lynn a lot.
I'd put Anthony Lynn at 2 only for the factor of I think that I was going to put John Gruden 2, but I put Anthony Lynn 2 only for his connection with Tyrod Taylor, and how they ran the same offense or a very similar offense in Buffalo
With LaShawn McCoy.
and with a running back that was pretty similar to LaShawn McCoy, but Austin Eckler is not as he can't run between the tackles as well as LaShawn McCoy could. But I do think that Anthony Lynn has that advantage during this ranking only for the fact that him and his quarterback are pretty synced together.
I would argue.
I don't feel that way for Gruden and Derek Carr. They just seem like they're mismatched.
Yeah, from everything that I've heard, they do not get along super well. I think part of my problem is just that Gruden. I don't know. I think that Gruden has been a decent head coach. He's definitely been better than a lot of guys. Although I think that you can do better than Gruden in the modern NFL, and I think Anthony Lynn has done a good job with a team that's been in some weird spots. They were kind of handicapped as a lot of franchises get to a veteran quarterback, and I think that seriously hindered what they could do. And I think he's dealt with a bad owner. I think that the GM has been better, but I think that you're capped to an owner that struggles, and there's a lot of off the field problems. Like, there aren't fans at games. They're moving stadiums. They're playing in an arena for like soccer. Like, there's a lot that could tear down your team mentally, and Lynn has kept it together, and he's kept a good unit. So I really think that that's a huge advantage here over Gruden, who I think has had problems with a lot of players coming in. And yeah, I don't think Gruden's done much, although I don't think he's a bad head coach.
Yeah, I don't think he's a bad head coach. I think he's a strong head coach. I just think the position that he's in and the team that he's in makes him not as effective.
I just think that he's a little bit too old. I think that the way that he wants to play football just isn't the way to do it. And I think he's adapted a bit, but I think at his core, he wants to play football like they did in 2005, and that's just not what's done. This one, I think we hinted at it when we talked about Drew Lock. At 4 is Denver. Yeah. I as much as I like Drew Lock, I don't like Vic Fangio as a head coach.
I don't like him either. I don't
it
get
it feels like Rex Ryan. You have this great defensive coordinator who then gets to the head coach and doesn't understand all the nuances. Now, I'll give it that, they were in an odd spot where they really haven't been able to get a quarterback, and I think a lot more pressure should be on El Presidente there, John Elway, who controls a lot of the football stuff there. I think Joe Flacco was a bad go. I love Joe Flacco, but he was not going to fit here. It was a weird thing. I like Drew Lock. I think there's potential there, but I don't know how this guy's going to help develop them. They brought in Pat Shurmur as the offensive coordinator, which I do like that a lot. And this is, we talk about coaching staff. That's a great addition. Pat Shurmur was a bad head coach, but he's a good offensive caller. And I think he's going to help Drew Lock a lot. Really?
I disagree that I think Pat Shurmur was a terrible addition to this team. Pat Shurmur has never, as an offensive coordinator, had a winning season.
Yeah, but that's not, as an offensive coordinator, there's only so much you can do there. There's a head who else was there? What teams is he with before this? Because I always remember Pat Shurmur's teams having decent offenses, but just not being great overall teams.
He was with the Cleveland Browns as their head coach.
That was not a good stint. That was a bad Cleveland Browns team, though.
Yep, 11-12. Yeah, that was like Johnny Manziel, I think, right? Or was that a year after?
No, that was probably before that.
And he was offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles in 2013 and 14, which led them to they were so bad that they got Carson Wentz.
Then, but that wasn't totally his fault. That was Chip Kelly stripped those teams of talent. I mean, that had Jeremy Maclin, Sean McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, all shipped off.
He still ran that offense.
Those teams still made the playoffs for the first 2 seasons. They still had decent offenses. So Nick Foles, and then they brought in Sam Bradford.
Then he was offensive coordinator at Minnesota for 2 years, 2016 to 2017.
They had a decent offense those years. I would argue
Decent?
that Pat
Sure.
Shurmur is a decent to good offensive coordinator. He's a terrible head coach.
I would agree, but like, I would
Pat
not.
Shurmur was sent
not
away
agree.
from Minnesota because he didn't want to run the ball as much as Mike Zimmer, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember exactly, but I just don't see him as a winner. He's not a winner, and that's going to be shown in his coaching style of Drew Lock. That we'll see how Drew Lock does, but I truly think that Pat Shurmur and Drew Lock are not going to be a good combination, and we're going to have the same conversation that we had with Freddie Kitchens and Mayfield at the end of
I don't think
at the
it'll
end of
be
next
that
season.
bad. I think that
I truly
if you
think
want to
so.
say that Shurmur is okay, I think that's fine. But Shurmur's not bad. Freddie Kitchens was so unprepared, and he's now a tight end coach for the Giants. So
I think Pat Shurmur's ill prepared through all of his success, or through all of his throughout his career. He has not won. He's not a winner.
I would argue that he's been on teams that have had serious setbacks at times, but I think that he does a good job as a coordinator. He is a terrible head coach, though. I'll give you that. But, so we'll close it out here with our overall rankings, and then we'll go through just a quick recap of where we have everything. But overall, this is, one is Kansas City. It's not hard.
Obviously.
You have Denver at 2. I have LA.
Yeah, I just think Denver has a better chance to be the wild card team than LA does, so that's why I put him there.
I agree that Denver has the potential to be a better team, but I think if we're living in a little bit of the boots on the ground, I know what the charges are and I like it. I have Denver at 3, you have at 2. I have LA at 2, you have them at 3, and we both agree that Vegas is the worst team in this division.
Yeah.
So to run through real quick, quarterbacks 1 through 4, we have Kansas City. And then I have the Raiders, Chargers, Denver. You have Kansas City, then
LA, Las Vegas, Denver.
At wide receiver, we agree completely on Kansas City, Chargers, Denver, Raiders.
Yep.
We get to the running backs here. We disagree. I have Denver, Vegas Raiders, Chiefs, and Chargers.
And then I have Denver, Kansas City, Vegas Raiders, and Chargers.
All right, at tight end, after a convincing argument, we moved it. We agree. Kansas City, Vegas, Chargers, and then Denver. Offensive line, we agreed here completely. Raiders, Chiefs, Broncos, Chargers. When it came to the defensive line, I had LA, Chargers, Chiefs, Denver, and Vegas, while you had...
I had the Chargers number 1, Denver number 2, Kansas City 3rd, and Las Vegas last.
And then when we got to the linebackers, we both agreed that Denver and LA were 1 and 2. I had Vegas at 3 and the Chiefs at 4. While you over here, you had the Chiefs at 3 and Vegas at 4.
Yeah.
You little sneaky rascal. And then we got to the DBs. I had it ranked as Chargers, Chiefs, Broncos, Raiders.
And I had it as Chiefs, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos.
Yeah, and then with coaching staff, we were in unanimous agreement again with Kansas City, Chargers, Raiders, Broncos. And then overall, I had the Chiefs at 1, Chargers at 2, Denver at 3, and Raiders at 4. And you had your
Kansas City ranking. Chiefs, Denver Broncos, LA Chargers, Vegas Raiders.
All right.
All right.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap. All right, everybody. Thank you guys for listening. I know it may have sounded like some droning on, but hopefully you learned something. I'm Carl.
I'm Sam.
And this is your Pooch Kick podcast. Come back next week. We're doing the NFC West. All right. We'll see you then.